Hey everyone, so we are finally trying to wrap up the full set review for Revelations with our last few multi-faction cards. And as a reminder, we're looking at how spicy I think those cards are, so how excited I am to use them, not necessarily related to how powerful I think the cards are, and it's entirely subjective, so I'd like to hear other people's opinions as well. And last video we covered our Veror and Flamed On adjacent cards, but I missed Project Hellfire. So we're going to start there. And Project Hellfire is a 5 spice card. It's just really cool. It hits the board really hard, and you can do some interesting things with buffing Project Hellfire before it hits the board, because it does create an exact copy of the card in the assault zone. So very cool card. Aggressive, and could really lean into some synergies around the card specifically. And now we're going to move into really the rest of the multi-faction cards for real this time. And that includes Descendants of the Dragons, Exiles, Sleepers, and Overseers, not in like a specific order, but I do have them kind of lumped by faction, so hopefully that is at least a little helpful. And we're going to start off with Concordant Collective. And this card, I think, is a 5 spice card. We have already kind of covered it, but I think that this card is got a lot going for it, that it makes your characters immune to these damage AoE effects, which encourages you to play a lot of them. The card itself can create an AoE damage effect. And I also think that just having such a huge amount of health for its cost is pretty interesting in itself, that this card gets me excited to try to build a deck around it and put the Sleepers and Descendants of the Dragon cards together. And we have another Sleepers plus Descendants of the Dragons card, and that's Undying Dedication. And I think that this card is a 2 spice card. And this card suffers from the fact that it doesn't really do anything immediately. That when you play it, it gives characters you control, while they're deployed, at the end of the turn, they get +1/+1 permanently, and the graveyard. So there might be some cool graveyard stuff you can do with it, but I can't think of how to leverage that. So if somebody else comes up with something cool, definitely something I will try out. But for the time being, I read this card as 5 cost, your characters get +1/+1, and that there isn't really a strong indication that you're going to be able to reliably have that effect happen more than once before the characters die. Infinity Wars is a very fast game, and this is a slow card. Maybe there's something that can take advantage of it. It's just not immediately apparent to me. Okay. Next, Lingbao, Sage of Disorder. One of our legendaries. This is a 5 spice card for me. I think that the card is really cool. I plan on building a deck around it, and I think there's multiple decks you can build around it. That the ability to throw away your whole hand and draw a new one and do morale burn is pretty significant, that it lets you take advantage of the Exiles effect to play cards that were discarded from the graveyard. You can also potentially lean into a morale burn deck, and just to boot, Lingbao himself has Exile too, so you can play this guy in the command zone, or you can play him in your deck, or you can play him in both, and potentially be able to play him at a discount. Really fantastic card. Looking forward to trying him. Okay, and our last Descendants of the Dragons card is Serpent of the Western Winds, and gonna be real with you, I think this might be a 1 spice card for me until I see something that convinces me otherwise, because it is a 5 cost 4/4, and for reference here, a 4/4 is what you get for one resource in this game. That we have a lot of 1-drops that are 4/4s or better that have an advantageous effect on them too. This guy's got flying, and he gives your other characters with flying +2/+2, but only when he's on the battlefield. So if you play him from hand, you don't get that buff right away. If you play him in the command zone, then you've got this guy in the command zone. I think we have to mention Guns of Goliath. That Guns of Goliath costs 1 less, buffs your board immediately, doesn't care if your characters have flying, doesn't require you to be in these 2 factions simultaneously. And in terms of the 1 resource cost reduction, on this card, you are paying 1 more resource and you're getting a 4/4 flyer out of it, which, I mean, you could make a debate, could be worth it, but this doesn't inspire me to build a new deck. That I would have built a new deck if this card had an indication to me that it was going to be able to have enough impact. But as is, I think it's really, really challenging to put this in a deck and feel like it's better than Guns of Goliath. So that's my 2 cents there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you run both cards and it's way better than I think it is. But right now this ain't it for me, Chief. Okay. All right. Let's move on. So we've got our Exiles card, and this is Exiles plus Sleepers, Bile Imp. The card is a 3-cost 8/6 with Infect and Exile 2, which if we ended it there would already be kind of okay as a card. But it also has, when you discard a character, if Bile Imp is deployed, the discarded character permanently gains Infect, which could be really cool. There's a lot of Sleepers cards that let you take things from the graveyard and get them back into play. So, and there's also a lot of Exiles cards that let you put things into the graveyard directly by discarding them from your hand. So I think this is a 4-spice card. It's hard to imagine not running it because it's just so solid across the board. And then maybe there's some really cool things you can do with that extra effect to give Infect to other characters. So that's a winner. All right. Next we have Denouncer of Heaven, and it's a 3-cost flying 7/4 Angel Demon. And when it dies, increase the top card of your opponent's deck by 3. I think this card's fun. I'm tempted to give it a 5-spice, to be honest. It's not super flashy, but I really have a soft spot for cards that mess with your opponent by making their cards harder to play. And this card has the flexibility to be in Exiles or Overseers. I think it's costed fairly. I think the effect is pretty decent. It's also an Angel and a Demon, so you can run it in tribal decks of either type. So it's got a lot of cool places you can put the card, and I'm really curious to see how potent that additional cost effect is. And that moves into Shattered Reality, which again is kind of a similar theme, that we've got this recurring theme of Exiles plus Overseers having these disruptive effects. And I also really like this card. I'm going to give it a 5-spice. That it costs 7, so it is a very expensive card to play, but it puts the character on top of your opponent's deck. So you're putting them behind a turn because they draw 1 fewer cards, basically. And then it puts a Magnus on top of their deck, so you're putting them a second turn behind. That this card is very, very disruptive, and you can target any zone, so it's very hard for your opponent to protect their characters. You can target high-cost characters and really, really mess with your opponent. I am going to build a deck with these cards together, and it's going to be fun. Okay. And we're moving on to our last couple cards. So here is Symbiotic Excavation, another Sleepers plus Exiles card. It's an ability, it's preemptive, so you can target your opponent's stuff before they can react. It's move up to 4 target cards from the enemy graveyard into your graveyard. And you may cast any characters targeted by this from your graveyard next turn. So it's kind of like a grave rob. It's preemptive. It prevents your opponent from doing graveyard stuff. And it's also kind of card draw. That being said, I don't feel like I need this effect. So I think this is probably a 2 spice. That I think there's going to be times that this card's fun, and maybe there's somebody who's really excited about this card. But for me, I don't feel like I want to run graveyard hate. That this one is not speaking to me. Basically, that I think the card's interesting, but I think its use case is pretty niche. Okay. And our final card, it's not our final card. There's one more after this. I totally forgot. But our penultimate card, Death in Heaven. And this card's 5 spice. This card is crazy, by the way. So it's 8 costs. It is Overseers plus Sleepers. And you get to kill all token characters or all non-token characters. And it's only deployed characters, so it doesn't hit the command zone, but it's pretty significant. This might be the strongest board wipe we've seen. Or could be. I'm not sure. Maybe there's some debate here, but playing Sleepers and Overseers together, this is enough of a reason to put those 2 factions together. And I will add that if you are playing a deck that cares a lot about tokens, this could be a asymmetrical board wipe. But even if you are not playing a deck that cares about tokens, being able to reliably nuke the whole board is a really strong effect. So, cool card, definitely one we're going to be seeing, and I will be playing. And then our last card, which I nearly forgot about, Agent Coyle, Singularity. And this is a 5 spice card because it is really, really weird. So it can be selected as any faction purity if it's used as a commander. So this is a one-of-a-kind card in that sense that you can put it in the command zone and it can be associated with whichever faction you want. Also, while he's deployed, other multi-faction characters you control gain +1/+1, which seems decent. And then the most significant thing on the card is that you can exhaust the card to draft a card from 4 randomly chosen multi-faction cards and put it on top of your deck. So it's the second time we've seen a card like this. We have Medi, and this is another card that lets you draft cards during the game. So very cool. I don't know where we use this card because it's, frankly, you can put it in any deck in the command zone because of that ability to pick any faction. And it seems really cool. So I'm not sure where I will be trying it, but I can try it wherever I'd like because of that interesting effect. And that wraps it all up. So thank you all for joining me on this journey. It's been fun going through all the cards, and hopefully you all enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about the set, any of the cards, and I'm looking forward to seeing what all of you come up with in-game as the new set rolls out. See y'all soon.